بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا اللهم زدنا علما إنك أنت عليم حكيم اللهم اجعل هذه المحاضرة حجة لنا لا حجة علينا يا رب العالمين أما بعد. Last week, inshallah ta'ala, we covered Bab al-Ghusl, صح? طيب. There were some things I mentioned in the class. I said, like when we spoke about وَيَتَوَضَّأُ بِمُدٍّ وَيَغْتَسِلُ بِسَاعَةٍ. We said that the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he would make wudu with a mud. And I told you guys next week I will bring one in. And so this here is a mud al-Nabawi. This here has the ijazah that goes back to Zaad ibn Thabit, a Sahabi. It's the measurement of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam hands together. And he used to make wudu with this. I'll pass it around. So if you guys want to see it, just pass it around to the brothers, inshallah. Four of those things is equal to a sa'a. And that's what he would make ghusl with. So if you compare that to us today, we take showers and we're in the showers all day. But the Prophet ﷺ would make a ghusl with four of those, and he would make wudu with one of them.
It's like a, what's like the little water bottle? I think that's about the same amount of water in there?
Allahu A'lam. I know when we were in school, we would just fill it up and just try to make wudu with it, just see if you could do it.
So you brought that from overseas here?
Yeah, I got this from Mecca. This has a ijazah from Sheikh Yahya Mudarris in Mecca, in the Haram. And he would give this to the students, but before he would give this to the students, he would ask you what books of Aqidah did you read and study before he would give this to you. At any event, this has a ijazah that goes back to Zayd ibn Thabit, a Sahabi. But this here is a mud, and this is also used for zakat. It's also used for zakat. But so today, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to start Bab al-Tayammum. Does anyone have any information about Tayammum? Do you know anything about it?
There's no water.
What you do when there's no water?
There's no water.
How do you purify yourself if you have no water? Okay. Anyone else?
One question before you get to that. You said that he did four of them for ghusl.
Yes, four of these with a ghusl. This is called the sa'a. The Prophet ﷺ will make a ghusl with four of these. And this here is called a mud. A mud.
Question, how tall was he?
How tall was he? Hello. I have to do some research on the exact. I mean, he wasn't short. He wasn't tall. So he was like in the middle.
And he kind of thin.
What did you say, thin?
In the middle.
No.
According to the narrations, in the middle. Not thin, not big, in the middle. You don't think you can make wudu with this?
Yeah.
You don't think you can make a ghusl with this?
I think, yeah.
Before it
if
is?
you minimize the amount of water, because now I'm very mindful of how much water I use when I make wudu, because I understand about not wasting that water.
Right.
And believe me, when I do it, I turns it down very low. Because I heard somewhere where you had to be mindful of the amount of water that you use.
Right. You're right.
So, yeah, it could be done. It could be done.
Tayyib. So then,
Matter of fact, I don't mean to cut you off. I think I did it when we was out in the park at our last picnic in the park. I used very little water, but I made wudu while I was out there.
mashallah. Nice. Tayyib. Bab al-Tayammum. Tayammum, for lugha, in the Arabic language, it means qasd, or an intent to do something. قال الله تعالى ولا تيمموا الخبيث منه تنفقون. Allah Jalla wa Ala says in the Quran, do not intend bad and spend from it. Do not intend to do something bad and spend from it. This is in Surah Al-Baqarah. There you go. Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 267. وَقَوْلَ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى فَتَيَمَّمُوا صَعِيدًا طَيِّبًا. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also mentions تَيَمَّمُوا صَعِيدًا طَيِّبًا, to use pure, clean dirt. Right? So the scholars of Islam, they explain that a tayammum has been established in the religion by way of the Quran, by way of the Sunnah, and by way of ijma'. By way of the Quran, by way of the Sunnah, and by way of al-ijma'. In the Quran, Allah Jalla wa Ala says, فَلَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً فَتَيَمَّمُوا سَعِيدًا طَيِّبًا فَامْسَحُوا بِوُجُوهِكُمْ وَأَيْدِيكُمْ مِنْهُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, if you can't find water, فَتَيَمَّمُوا, then you make tayammum. And then Allah explains, فَامْسَحُوا, you wipe your face and your hands with it. And the Sunnah is also established on Hadith Ammar. He says, بَعَثَنِي نَبِيُّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ فِي حَاجَةً. He said, the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he sent me on my way to take care of something. فَأَجْنَبْتُ وَلَمْ أَجِدَ الْمَاءَ. And then I became sexually impure and I could not find any water. فَتَمَرَّغْتُ فِي الصَّعِيدِ. And he says, so I began to roll around in the dirt. I began to roll around in the dirt. كَمَا تَمَرَّغُ الدَّابَّةِ, the same way an animal or a horse will roll around in the dirt. ثُمَّ أَتَيْتُ النَّبِيَّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ فَذَكَرْتُ ذَلِكَ لَهُ. And so I came to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam and I mentioned that to him. فَقَالَ إِنَّمَا يَكْفِيكَ أَن تَقُولَ بِيَدَيْكَ هَكَذَا. He said, indeed, it would have sufficed you to just put your hands together like this. ثُمَّ ضَرَبَ بِيَدَيْهِ الْأَرْضَ ضَرْبَةً وَاحِدًا. So then the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he took his hands and he hit the dirt one time. ثُمَّ مَسَحَ الشَّمَالَ عَلَى الْيَمِينِ وَظَهَرَ كَفَّيْهِ وَوَجْهَهُ مُتَّفِقٌ عَلَيْهِ. And then the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he wiped his hands right over his left and the ظَاهِرَ كَفَّيْهِ, the back of his hands and his face. And this hadith was reported by Imam al-Bukhari and Imam Muslim in their Sahih. Right. And likewise we have al-ijma'. And likewise we have an ijma'. What is an ijma'? Does anyone know? Consensus. Consensus of the Sahaba. Is that a proof in Islam? Question. Is ijma' a proof in Islam? Yes, it is. Is it a strong proof? Is it stronger than a hadith? Ijma' is not stronger than a hadith?
A hadith is coming from the mouth of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Is ijma' stronger than the Quran?
No.
No.
From Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Mumtaz. طيب. Some of the ulama say stronger. How is that? How is that possible?
Is that understanding of it?
Ahsant. Because the ijma', it confirms what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran and in the Sunnah. So for example, if Allah mentions something in the Quran, you might understand something from it, someone else might understand from it. But the ijma', it says, no, this is what's understood by it. So then it's very strong. The ijma' is very strong. This is why it's important when we practice the religion to take our understanding from the Sahaba and the ones who study from them and so on and so forth. First from the Prophet ﷺ, but they understood the intent of the Prophet ﷺ better than anyone else, his companions. And then the students who studied underneath them. طيب. إذن الإجماع, they say أجمعت الأمة على جواز التيمم في الجملة. That the ummah, the Muslims in general, have established the permissibility of tayammum with the adillah that was already mentioned. طيب. So then the Shaykh rahimahullah, he starts off by saying وَهُوَ بَدَلُ طَهَارَةِ الْمَاءِ, that tayammum is a substitution for water. Tayammum is a substitution for water. طيب. So a person has to ask themselves, what are some of the things we use water for in terms of purifying ourselves? What are they? Does anyone know?
For purifying? Sexual impurity?
No. Okay, yeah, like what do we use water for in terms of getting in a state of purification? What do we use it for? To purify what? So wudu is one. What else? Ghusl is two. What else? There's a third thing here.
Extension.
Okay, yeah, so that could fall under izalat najasa, to remove impurities. So then, in general, we use water for what? Wudu, a ghusl, and to remove impurities. To remove impurities, the removal of impurities fall into 3 categories. The removal of impurities fall into how many categories? 3. Either a buq'ah is a place that you're praying in. There could be some impurities there. The second one is your garments. There could be impurities on your garments. And the third thing is impurities on your body. Okay? So tayammum, of those 3 things that are mentioned, which one can we use tayammum for? The body. Not for the place, and not for the clothes, but just for the body. So then, tayammum can be used from 3 things. Either for wudu, a ghusl, or to remove an impurity on your body that you can't get to. And we'll talk about that a little later, insha'Allah ta'ala. Right. So then tayammum, it has 2 conditions. A tayammum, it has 2 conditions. Condition number 1 is إِذَا دَخَلَ الْوَقْتِ فَرِيضَةً. In order to make tayammum, the time has to be in. What does that mean, the time? Faridatan. So for example, right now, the Salatul Isha. Right? For tayammum, in order to make tayammum, it has to be in the time of that salat. So you can't make tayammum before the time of the salat. Is that clear? You can't make tayammum before the time of the salat. Right. Another one, وَأُبِيحَتْ نَافِلَةً. It also has to be a time in which, if you wanted to pray a nafila, like Salatul Duha, for example, then there will also have to be time for that. In other words, you can't make tayammum in a time that's impermissible to pray and then wait until that time to pray that sunnah. Is that clear? Right. The next condition in order to make a tayammum is ta'addur al-ma'. In other words, there's no water available to use. Now here it's kind of tricky because we're going to learn some things that water may be present, but you still are able to make tayammum. Okay, and we're going to discuss some of those issues, insha'Allah ta'ala. The first thing he mentions, عُدِمَ الْمَاءُ أَوْ زَادَ عَلَى ثَمَنِهِ. So the first thing he says, إِذَا عُدِمَ الْمَاءُ. This is easy. Now this means if there's no water present during the time of the salah, then it's easy for a person to make what? Tayammum. Is that clear? If there's no water present, then it's easy for a person to make tayammum. The next one, زَادَ عَلَى ثَمَنِهِ كَثِيرًا. Or if there is water present, however, the price, you don't have any money, or you have money, but the price of that water is too high. Here's an example. Right now, it's time to make salah. Right? The water is off. Water usually is $1. Right? $1.50. Bottle of water. Small bottle of water, $1.50. Okay? Since the people in the store know that you're Muslim and you got to pray, and there's no other water running except for the water in their store, so they charge you $50 for this bottle of water to make wudu. In this case, you can make tayammum because the price here is too high.
They talked about
Yes.
About
Yes.
they sold water back in the day.
I'm just saying, they're not mentioning water, but this is an example. If the price of the water is too high, then you can make tayammum. Right. زاد أو ثمن يعجزه. Or there's another price that you just don't have the money. Rather, perhaps the water is a normal price, $1.50, but you just don't have the money and no one's going to give it to you. So in this case, you have to what? Make tayammum. Even though water is what? Is present. It's available. Right. Huh?
Tayammum.
Sheikh, can you hold it, or you want?
I can hold it.
You sure?
I'm positive. You always ask me that question like
Nah, because I just want to finish, inshallah.
Go ahead.
All right, Jazakallah khair.
Do you know I love you?
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
We don't have to do this.
Alhamdulillah. So then it says here, أو خاف باستعماله. أو خاف باستعماله. If a person is afraid to use the water. If a person is afraid to use the water. So why would a person be afraid to use water? Because it can harm him. Because the water can harm him. Huh? It has the potential to harm him. How? So we're going to mention some scenarios. خاف باستعماله أو طلبه. So if a person is afraid to use it or afraid to go search for the water. Why would a person be afraid to search for water? It's time for the salah. Why would they be afraid to search for the water? So then Imam al-Hajjawi, he mentions أو طلبه ضررا ضرر بدنه. So perhaps he's in a neighborhood. Maybe he's in a neighborhood and if he goes to the store, he might get robbed, he might get beat up, some harm might come his way. So in this case, he doesn't go get the water. Does that make sense? Like, so in this case, he doesn't go get the water. And another one, he says, أو رفيقه. Or he may be afraid that if he goes and gets the water, some harm might come to his companion that's there with him. So in this case, he doesn't have to go get the water. Or it says, or أو حرمته. Or if he goes to get water, he's afraid something might happen to his wife or his daughter. Or, his wife here, talking about his family. Something might happen to his family if he goes and searches for the water. So in this case, he can leave it off. O malihi. Or he is afraid that something might happen to his wealth. If he leaves his car here, then he goes search for the water, then someone might steal his vehicle or what have you. Bi'atishin o maradin. Or he may have some water. And if he goes and uses it, he's going to be thirsty. He's not going to have anything to drink that's going to sustain him. Aw maradin, or he might be sick. If he's sick, then he won't be able to. If he's sick, he's afraid if he uses the water, it's going to make him sicker. Aw halakin wa nahwi. If he uses the water, he's afraid he might, some other harm might come his way. Shuri'a at-tayammum. In this case, it is legislated for the person to make tayammum. This is according to the fiqh of Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal. وَمَنْ وَجَدَ مَاءً يَكْفِي بَعْضَ طُهْرِهِ وَالتَّيَمَّمْ بَعْدَ اسْتِعْمَالِهِ. If a person does find water, if a person does find some water, okay? فَمَنْ وَجَدَ مَاءً يَكْفِي بَعْضَ طُهْرِهِ تَيَمَّمْ. If a person finds some water, but it's not enough to cover his whole body and making wudu. So perhaps he has enough water to wash his face, his hands, but that's it. So they say in this case, he uses what he can from the water and then make tayammum for the rest.
It's kind of strange.
All right. So what this means is, say he has some of the water and he's making wudu. It's enough to cover certain body parts, but once he finishes using it, he can't finish washing his feet, for example. So what is he going to do about his feet? There's no other water. The water that he had is all used up.
But you said tayammum is washing just your hands and your face. So what
You're not washing anything.
No, I'm saying you just your hands and your face. That's tayammum, right or wrong. So if you come down to your feet, what's the point of washing your feet if tayammum is just your hands?
Because the origin, tayammum is a rukhsa. It's an exception, not the norm. You use the exception when you can't do what is legislated from the norm. The norm is to make wudu. You have to use the water that he has. He's using the water to make wudu. He gets down to his feet, all of the water is used up. He still has to wash his feet, sah. What is he going to do? So the Shaykh rahimahullah, he says, وَمَنْ وَجَدَ مَاءً يَكْفِي بَعْضَ طُهْرِهِ. If he has some water and it's only good for a portion of his purification, tayammum ba'da isti'malihi. Then he makes tayammum after he finishes using it to cover the rest. وَمَنْ جُرِحَ تَيَمَّمْ لَهُ وَغَسَلَ الْبَاقِي. And as for the one who is as for the one who is injured, if a person is injured, he has some type of wound where he can't, make a complete wudu or a complete ghusl. In this case, وَمَنْ جُرِحَ تَيَمَّمْ لَهُ وَالْغَسَلَ الْبَاقِي. As for the issue, say for example, a person, we're going to read a hadith about that. Say for example, a person has a cut on their head. They can't wash their head, for example. Right? It'll cause them harm. In this case, you make tayammum for the part that you can't touch and wash the rest of your body that can be washed. So, with regard to a person,
tayammum first, then
yeah, or you could wash it then tayammum. So it says a tayammum li khawf al barad. I remember there was a time we were making hajj. I want to say like 7 years ago, and one of the brothers, it was time to make wudu, and it was really cold. And so he made tayammum, and at the time I was like, man, how are you going to make tayammum? That's crazy. We got water right here. He said, man, it's cold. At the time, I thought that was a bad position, but, that's between him and his Lord. But later, as we studied, I realized that was a good position to take, especially because it was freezing. It was really cold out. And so here, a tayammum li khawf al-barad. Qala Allah Ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. Allah Jalla wa Ala says in the Quran, do not kill yourselves. There's also a refutation against people who think that Muslims can go around killing themselves. Allah clearly says it in the Quran, do not kill yourselves. So Allah says, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. Allah says, do not kill yourselves. وَلَمَّا رَوَى عَمْرُ بْنُ عَاص رضي الله تعالى عنه قال احتلمت في ليلة باردة. Amr ibn As, he said, I had a wet dream or nocturnal emission in a very, very cold night. Fi ghazwatin dhat as-salasil. And we were in a war, and I had, a nocturnal emission. And so he said, فَأَشْفَقْتُ إِنْ اِقْتَصَوْتُ أَنْ أَهْلِكَ فَتَيَمَّمْتُ. He said, I was afraid that if I were to, because of the cold, I didn't want to destroy myself, because I figured I would be, I would die or come to destruction. So I made tayammum. ثُمَّ صَلَيْتُ بِأَصْحَابِي الصُّبْحِ. He said, then I made tayammum, and then I prayed with my companion, Salatul Fajr. فَذَكَرُوا ذَلِكَ لِلنَّبِي صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. And then that was mentioned to the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام. فَقَالَ يَا عَمْرُ صَلَّيْتَ بِأَصْحَابِكَ وَأَنْتَ جُنُبٌ. And so the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, he said, Ya Amr, did you pray with your companions while you were in a state of sexual impurity? And so Amr ibn As, he said to the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, فَأَخْبَرْتُهُ بِالَّذِي مَنَعَنِي مِنَ الْاغْتِسَالِ. And so I informed him of that which prevented me from making a ghusl. وَقُلْتُ إِنِّي سَمِعْتُ اللَّهَ. So he said to the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, he said, for indeed I heard Allah Jalla wa Ala yaqul. He said, I heard Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, and this is Amr ibn As saying this to the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام. He said, I heard Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ بِكُمْ رَحِيمًا. He said, I heard Allah say in the Quran, do not kill yourselves, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is merciful with us. فَضَحِكَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ وَلَمْ يَقُلْ شَيْئًا. And so after that, the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he laughed. He laughed at Amr ibn As, and he didn't say anything after that. Rawahu al-Khalla wa Abu Dawood and others. And this is also reported by Imam al-Bukhari. So the ulama al-Islam, when they explain this hadith, they say, Sukut al-Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam yadullu ala jawaz al-fi'l. With the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam being quiet and not saying anything is an indicator of the permissibility of it. There's also a qaida in al-Islam. It mentions a qaida تقول لا يجوز تأخير البيان عن وقت الحاجة. That is not permissible to delay clarifying something in its time of necessity. So if it was wrong for the Sahabi Amr ibn As to be to make tayammum, the Prophet ﷺ would have told him, go and make a ghusl and pray again. So this shows the permissibility of it. But with regards to a jurh, a person being harmed, having an injury, in another narration, ما روى جابر قال خرجنا في سفر فأصاب رجلا منا شج في وجهه. In another narration that was reported on Jabir, he said that we left traveling فأصاب رجلا, so a man was injured in his head. ثم احتلم, and then he also had nocturnal emission. فسأل أصحابه, and so the man, he had a crack or a cut or a gash in his head, a gash in his head. فسأل أصحابه, so he asked his companions, هل تجدون لي رخصة? Is there an exception for me for tayammum? Can I make tayammum? The Sahabi asked the rest of the companions, is it possible for me to make tayammum with my injury? قالوا ما نجد لك رخصة وأنت تقدر على الماء. They said, we don't find for you an exception while you're able to get water. So after the other companion heard this, فاغتسل, so he made a ghusl famat, and he died. He made ghusl and then he died. فلما قدمنا على النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أخبر بذلك. So when we came to the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام and told him what had happened, the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, he said, قتلوه قتلهم الله ألا سألوا إذا لم تعلموا. So the Prophet ﷺ said to his companions, he said, قتلوه, they killed him. He said, may Allah destroy you. ألا سألوا إذا لم تعلموا, why didn't you ask if you didn't know? He said, فإنما شفاء العي السؤال, for indeed the cure for ignorance is a question. إنما كان يكفيه أن يتيمم ويعصب على جرحه ثم يمسح عليه ثم يغسل سائر جسده. He said it would have been sufficient for him to make tayammum and put a cloth or something over his injury and wipe over it, and then wash the rest of his body that he needed to wash. And this hadith was reported by Abu Dawud. طيب. ويجب طلب الماء في رحله. It's also wajib. So say, for example, if we're sitting in a location and we don't have water, it's wajib now for that person, talabul ma'i fi rahlihi. You have to look through your belongings, maybe your vehicle, your mata', your vehicle, whatever you have in your possession, you have to look and physically search for water. Wa qurbihi, and anywhere close by. Wa bi dalalatan, and also you have to ask people, listen, I need to make, فَإِنْ نَسِيَ قُدْرَتُهُ عَلَيْهِ وَالتَّيَمَّمْ أَعَادٍ. If a person, for example, forgets, and after he does all of this, he prays, or he makes tayammum and prays. And then afterwards, he realizes that, hey, I have water right over there. In this case, he has to pray again. He has to pray again. وَإِنْ نَوَى بِتَيَمُّمِهِ أَحْدَاثًا. If a person were to make intentions for his tayammum ahdath, meaning a hadith asgar, the small one, and the major hadith, or najasatan ala badanihi tadurruhu izalatuha, or if a person wanted to remove some type of najasa off of his body, but he couldn't do it for whatever reason, he had najasa on his body, but he couldn't remove it, or udima yuziluha, or khafa bardan. So say, for example, a person, if a person wanted to remove some najasa from his body, he would also have to make intentions for tayammum. If he doesn't have what? Water. If he doesn't have water. طيب. And likewise, if a person is afraid from the cold. Another thing here that is mentioned, أو حبس في مصر فتيمم. And likewise, if a person is imprisoned, if he's imprisoned and he doesn't have access to water, in this case, he makes tayammum. أو عدم الماء والتراب. And then we have another issue. They call it فاقد الطهورين, meaning you don't have water, nor do you have dirt. There's nothing that you can wipe that's going to give you any type of dirt or water or dust or what have you. He said, in this case, salli أو صلى ولم يعد. In this case, a person prays على حسب حالي, the condition that he is in, and he doesn't have to do the salah over. ولم يعد. Is that clear, that issue? Is that clear? طيب. ويجب التيمم بتراب. So now they're going to talk about what you have to use for a tayammum. يجب التيمم بتراب طهور غير محترق له غبار. In order to make tayammum, you have to use dirt. Dirt, soil, they say not sand. Right? طهور, it has to be pure, purifying. غير محترق له غبار. It has to have some type of dust. And some of them mention in the more expansive books of fiqh, it mentions it has to have يعلق على يد. It has to be something that, so if you touch the dirt or whatever, it's going to be some type of remnants on your hand. Okay? وفروضه, فروضه, the conditions of it, or the arkan, the pillars of it. مسح وجهه ويديه إلى كوعه. A person has to wipe his face. So there are four, in order to make tayammum, there are four pillars. There are four pillars. Number one, mashu wajhihi, that the person wipes their face. Wa yadehi ila ku'ihi, and he wipes his or her hands up into their wrists. Up into their what? Their wrists. طيب. Then after that, what tartib? Wa kada a tartib? A tartib is what? The order. Right? So the hands, is it the hands or the face? The face. The face, then the what? Then the hands. Right? And then it has to be in order. And then we have al-muwalat, meaning there can't be a time delay between doing it. So for example, a person can't just wipe their face, sit around and talk for 15, 20 minutes, and come back and wipe their hands. La. It has to be muwalat. Muwalat means it has to be in succession. This issue of order and no time, the lack of time delays, that's the same conditions with regards to wudu. Right or wrong? Okay? So then it says, تشترط muwalat fi hadith al-asghar. I forgot to mention this point. It has to be with hadith al-asghar. In other words, the last two conditions, the order and the lack of time delay, that can only be for hadith al-asghar. In other words, if a person used the bathroom and they had to make tayammum, they didn't have water. If they needed to make a ghusl, then there's no order. You can do it however way you want. So the question is, how is that? Why is that? The reason is because the ulama here, they make qiyas. Qiyas off of water. If you're using water, if you're going to make a ghusl, remember we broke ghusl down into two categories, right? We have ghusl kamal, which is a complete ghusl, which comprises of sunnah and things that are not the sunnah. Or, things that are wajib and things that are sunnah. And then we have the other ghusl that is called a mujzi, which will suffice with the things that are just necessary or wajib. So if a person just did that which was wajib, was there any order when we discussed that? Or they just wet their whole body one time? They just wet their whole body one time. So in this case, the ulama mentioned, if it's a hadith al-akbar, a major impurity, then they can make tayammum however way they want. Whether they start to face the hands or hands face. There's no order, there's no order, or there's no time. It's just one time. Is that clear? طيب. وتشترط النية لما يتيمم له من حدث أو غيره. If a person wanted to make tayammum, then they will have to have their niyyah. Their niyyah has to be present of what they're doing. فإن نوى أحدها لم يجزئه عن الآخر. If a person made a niyyah for tayammum to pray, for example, a nafila, a sunnah prayer, then that sunnah prayer, that tayammum that he made will not suffice for an obligatory prayer. Okay? وَإِن نَوَى نَفْلًا أَوْ أَطْلَقَ لَمْ يُصَلِّ بِهِ فَرْضًا. So if a person intended to make a sunnah, right, he cannot pray an obligatory prayer with it. وَإِن نَوَاهُ صَلَّ كُلَّ وَقْتِهِ فُرُوضًا أَوْ نَوَافِلًا. But if a person intended an obligatory prayer as well as a sunnah prayer with their tayammum, then it will suffice for both of them. Is that clear? So then when your person, the intention has to be very specific when you're making tayammum. All right, so now we're going to mention some things that will break the tayammum. Some things that will break the tayammum. يبطل التيمم بخروج الوقت. The first thing that we need to understand about tayammum is that tayammum is muwaqqat, yani is for a specific time. So say for example, it's time for Salatul Dhuhr and we make tayammum. Once Salatul Asr comes in, what happens to that tayammum? You have to redo it again. It's gone. وَلَا يَجُوزُ أَن يُصَلِّ بِالتَّيَمُّمْ صَلَاتَيْن فِي الْوَقْتَيْن. And it is not permissible for a person to pray in tayammum, with one tayammum, 2 salats in 2 different time periods. And there's some difference of opinion, but this is the position. رُوِيَ ذَلِكَ عَنْ عَلِي. This is the position of Ali ibn Abi Talib, Ibn Umar, وهو قول الشعبي والنخعي وكتادة ومالك وشافعي وإسحاق. And there's a nice group of ulama from the Sahaba and their students, and like them who held this position. The next thing that will break a person's tayammum is the mubtilat al-wudu. Anything that will normally break a wudu also breaks the tayammum. Anything that would normally break wudu will also break a person's tayammum. Walau fi salat. The next issue is wa wujud al-ma'i walau fi salat la ba'daha. Say for example a person. Now the third thing that will also break a person's tayammum is if a person is in the salat. If a person is in the salat. Say for example you're praying. You made tayammum, you're praying. A person walks in front of you with a bucket of water and places it in front of you. This breaks your tayammum.
But how would you in prayer? How would you see that bucket of water?
I mean, maybe they tell you, I have water. We have water. Water's here. Maybe you see it. Huh? It says, bi wujud al-ma. Even if it was present and you didn't see it, it says, walau fi salat. So this here, when they say walau, even if they're in prayer, this even if here, as the ulama taught us in this book here, when they say even if, that's an indicator there's difference of opinion on that. In this book in particular, when you read some of the classical texts of the ulama, if you see statements like even if, that's an indicator that there may be some difference of opinion on that particular issue. It says, walau fi salatin la ba'daha. Even if they're in prayer, but not after they finish praying. So say, for example, you finish praying and someone comes with water, then you're good at that point. وَتَيَمَّمْ آخِرَ الْوَقْتِ لِرَاجِيَ الْمَاءِ أَوْلَى. And it is better for a person to make tayammum at the last part of the time, not in the beginning. Yeah, in other words, the last time for that salah is better to make it towards the end than in the beginning of that particular salah. Does that make sense? Yani, so if it's dhuhr, before you make you shouldn't make tayammum as soon as dhuhr comes in. You should wait because you might have time to find water. So they say it's better, it's awla, yani better to wait until the end, towards the end of that salah to look for, until you can find water. However, if a person were to make tayammum in the beginning of the salah, jaza dhalik. It's permissible, but it's better to wait. Is that clear? Wasifatuhu. Now we're going to get into the description of a tayammum. And yanwiya thumma yusamma. The first thing a person has to have an intention. What are you doing? And we don't say it out loud. We don't say, yes, my intention is to make tayammum. No. All right? You're saying this istibahatu salah, for example. You're making tayammum so that you can pray an obligatory prayer. Like you're praying in your mind, okay, I'm doing this so I can pray dhuhr. I'm doing this so I can pray dhuhr in the sunan or what have you. Right? So sifatuhu and yanwiya. The first thing a person makes, the niyyah or the intention. Thumma yusamma. Then after that they say Bismillah. Wa yadrib al-tarab biyadayhi mufragatayhi. Mufragatay al-asabi'. They're going to hit the ground with their fingers spread out. They're going to hit the ground with their fingers spread apart. وَيَمْسَحُ وَجْهَهُ. And after that, they're going to wipe their face. بِبَاطِنِهِمَا. With their insides of their palms. وَكَفَّيْهِ وَرَاحَتَيْهِ وَيُخَلِّلُ أَصَابِعِ. And then after that, they're going to wipe their hands. So first they're going to wipe their face. Then they're going to wipe their hands up until their wrists. And they're going to يُخَلِّلُ أَصَابِعِ. Put their fingers in between their fingers. Okay? And with that, we finished a tayammum. And I wanted to do Bab Izalat al-Najasa. We have time? Look, inshallah. You had a question really quick, right?
Yeah. Well, it's tayammum. So that means that with your mouth and your nose.
La mumtaz. Good question. A tayammum does not mean you put the dirt in your mouth and your nose. Excellent question. We do not put the dirt in our mouth. We don't put the dirt in our mouth and our nose and blow it out. Nah.
What about striking the wall?
Wallahi, I heard some of the ulama differ on that issue. Right now, I'm not giving any fatwa. I'm just teaching the book. They say dirt, use dirt, and it has to have some type of dust, gubar. It has to have some dust, something that hangs on to your hand.
I'm still kind of a little lost about something when you say that, like water. If you had a little bit of water and then it didn't reach your feet.
Okay, let me explain that again. Let's say, for example, you have this here, right? It's water in it. But you know for a fact that the water in this mud here is not enough for you to make wudu. You know that. So what are you going to do? Based on what I said, what are you going to do?
You're gonna use enough water to reach where it can reach, and then make
tayammum for the rest.
For the rest, but when you make tayammum for the rest, I don't understand that part. So
Mumtaz. So what does tayammum mean?
It means well, I guess if you asking me how to do it, or
No. I'm asking what does it mean? What is tayammum?
It's a substitute for if you don't
for purifying water.
Yeah.
Tayammum is a substitution for purifying water. Okay, what does that mean? Purifying water, if we're going to make wudu, we have to wash all of our body parts that are obligatory to wash.
Right.
If we're going to make ghusl, we have to wash all of the body parts that are obligatory to wash in a ghusl. Right? Tayyib. Tayammum, if I use the bathroom, I'm not washing any body parts. All I'm doing is wiping my face with dirt and my hands with dirt. If I have to make a ghusl, I'm not washing any body parts. I'm just wiping my face and my hands with dirt. If I have some najas or some impurities on my body, I don't have any water to clean it, no tissue or nothing to wipe it off, except, I'm in a bad situation. I'm just going to make tayammum with my face and my hands again. Okay? Now, when we use this water to make wudu, I don't have enough to wash my feet, wipe my head, I don't have enough. So what am I going to do? How can I put my stuff in a state of worship? I want to pray. I can't pray right now because I only had enough water to make half of my wudu. What do I do? That's the question. So once you use the water, now in order to put yourself in a position where you can pray, now you have to make tayammum because you have no other option. Does that make sense? Did I clear up a little bit? Alhamdulillah. Anybody else have any questions about that?
No, I was thinking something totally different.
Well, what were you thinking?
I was thinking like maybe and it was just my thought, like maybe you wipe over your feet with the dust.
Nah.
See, that's why.
That's
Okay.
when you said it. That's what I was thinking.
Okay.
That's what I was waiting for. I was
Okay.
saying the class same thing.
You said you gotta.
Oh, Mum said. Okay. All right. So does it make sense?
Yeah. So you
You get to your feet.
and you
You just make tayammum, your face and your hands.
Cool.
That's it.
As far as okay, you go to the bathroom. There's no water. You gotta go to the bathroom. Do you make a stenja?
If you don't have water, how you gonna make it sinjah? You don't have water. You don't have water. No, we're gonna talk about that right now. This is the next chapter we're getting ready to cover. We'll hold that thought. All right, now we're gonna move on to something else. Any other questions about that? Tayyib. So the next chapter here, I'm gonna try to get through this one. This is not that long. The next chapter is Babu Izalat al-Najasa al-Hukmiyya. Removing impurities. Tayyib. Now, a lot of this we covered in the very, very beginning. We spoke about a lot of this in the very beginning. This is why I wanted to do it as well, because we covered a lot of this before. Dealing with impurities, removing them. So in this case, it says يجزئ في غسل النجاسات كلها إذا كانت على الأرض غسلة واحدة تذهب العين. So the first thing that we're going to talk about here is there are three ways to remove najasa or impurities with water. All right, we have different numbers. How many of you guys remember if there's certain najasas or impurities, we only have to wash it one time? And if there's other forms of impurities, some say it's 3 times. And if it's another form of impurity, some say it's 7 times. Did we cover this before? All right, we're gonna have a quick rehash right now. It says يجزئ في غسل النجاسات كلها إذا كانت على الأرض غسلة واحدة تذهب بعين النجاسة. So the first thing is, right now it's time for the salah. We're in a place where on the ground is somebody urinated there, and that's the only place that you can pray in. But you got water, and based on this statement here, you take the water and you clean it one time. You can scrub it, whatever, but you don't got to wash it a certain number of times. A certain amount of times, it will suffice in the area that you're going to pray in on the ground that you clean it one time. Is that clear? So some people say, well, why just one time? Because this goes back to the hadith of the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, bala a'rabiyyun fil masjid, that there was a Bedouin, he came into the masjid and he urinated in the masjid. And the Prophet ﷺ called for some water and he poured the water on it one time and they cleaned it. So that's what they use for cleaning it one time if the water touches the ground. Is that clear? Okay. So then the next one, it says, وَعَلَى غَيْرِهَا سَبْعٌ إِحْدَهَا بِالتُّرَابِ فِي نَجَاسَةِ كَلْبٍ وَخِنْزِيرٍ. So then after that, if we find a najasa that is not on the ground, that's number one. It's not on the ground. One of those cleansing or one of those cleaning cycles, we have to use dirt if we're talking about something that has to be cleaned from a dog or a pig. Let me back that up. If a dog in Islam, in the method of Imam Ahmed, dogs are considered najis. Dogs are considered najis. So when the ulama talk about, and it was already clear about pigs, there's no discussion on that. The issue here is with dogs. So in the method of Imam Ahmed and others, they consider dogs to be najis, impure. In fact, they consider the lu'ab, the spit, the saliva, the teeth, anything, consider all to be najis or all to be impure with regards to a dog or an animal or dog. And so there's a hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam where it says, إِذَا وَلَغَ كَلْبُ فِي إِنَاءِ أَحَدِكُمْ فَاغْسِلْهُ سَبْعًا أُولَّاهُنَّ بِالتُّرَابِ or كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. And a hadith that was reported by Imam al-Bukhari and Muslim, he said that if a dog were to lick inside of a bowl, then you are to wash that bowl 7 times. The first time is with dirt. Somebody, well, why dirt? Well, why dirt? Why do you have to add dirt? So there's some discussion on that. Imam Malik, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says that this hadith is ta'abbudi. How many of you guys remember ta'abbudi? Have we ever discussed that? Ta'abbudi and mu'allal. The 2 types of rulings in Islam. The 2 types of rulings in Islam. We have one type of ruling in Islam that is considered mu'allal. What does mu'allal mean? Mu'allal means the reason for the legislation is known. If we know the reason for the legislation, then the ulama will make qiyas off of that legislation for something else. Like what? Alcohol. Alcohol is muharram. It's haram to drink alcohol. Sah? Tayyib. We don't find anything about taking pills. You don't find anything about smoking weed. You don't find anything about getting high. But the reason that made alcohol impermissible, you find it in other substances. And this is another principle in Islam. It says, Al-Hukm yadurru ma'illatihi wujudan wa adaman. This is a qa'idah. This is a principle in Islam. Al-Hukm yadurru ma'illatihi wujudan wa adaman. And what this means is that the ruling that made this alcohol impermissible is if that substance is found in something else, then it takes the same ruling. If that substance is removed from that other thing, then also that ruling is likewise removed. Is that clear? Right. So then, let's get back to the dog. So Imam Malik, rahimahullah, he says that su'ruhu tahir. He says that the liquid or the fluids in the mouth of a dog is pure. Why would Imam Malik say that? I saw your face look out. Why would he say that? Does anyone know? Because the dog has his mouth open? La. And this is important to know, Ikhwan. When the ulama differ in Islam, they all got dalil. Don't think that, ulama, they speak with their desires. They have dalil. So Imam Malik, he says it's ta'abbudi. First of all, he says it's ta'abbudi. In other words, the reason for this legislation of washing the bowls 7 times and the first time with dirt, the reason is unknown. We say it's ta'abbudi. When we say something is ta'abbudi, what does this really mean? This means that you can't make qiyas off of something else. That's the benefit of knowing whether a ruling is ta'abbudi or mu'allal. The benefit of knowing that is that we can't use a ruling for that for something else, because we don't know why it was ruled that way. So we just say we hear and we obey. Is that clear? That's very important to know. So then, Imam Malik says it's ta'abbudi. In other words, we don't know the reason for its legislation. And so therefore, there's a group of ulama that hold dogs not to be najis. And they use the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where Allah says in the Quran, فَكُلُوا مِمَّا أَمْسَكْنَا عَلَيْكُمْ. Here in this verse in the Quran, Allah says, eat from the things that they've caught for you. Talking about the dogs. Because dogs are also used in Islam for hunting. You can use a dog to hunt an animal for you and bring it back. And then they mention, when you get into the other, you look at these issues in a lot more detail, they say when a dog bites down on the animal, Allah didn't tell you to clean the wounds that they bit down in, so therefore their mouth is pure. You see that? Wallahu alam. I just wanted to share that. Like, it says that in the tafsir, it says, وَلَمْ يَأْمُرْ بِغَسْلٍ أَثْرَ فَمِهِ. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't order anyone to wash the remnants of the mouth of the dog. And also, some of the ulama say that they are not najis. He said, because يَقُولُ لِأَنَّهُ يَجُوزُ أو لِأَنَّهُ حَيَوَانٌ يَجُوزُ اقْتِنَاؤُهُ وَيَشُقُّ الْاحْتِرَازِ مِنْهُ فَكَانَ طَاهِرًا كَالْحُرَّةِ. So some of them say, this is because the dogs are animals that people take. You're allowed to keep a dog. Not in the house with you, but out in the yard. You can keep a dog. And it's hard to keep them away from you. So some of them say, فَكَانَ طَاهِرًا. So some of them say, well, they're pure, just like a cat. Allahu A'lam. However, the majority of the ulama that I've read from the Salaf, they consider them to be najis. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. So then the next issue here, وَيُجْزِئُ عَنْ طَرَابٍ أُشْنَانٍ وَنَحْلِهِ. So some of the ulama say that when it says the first part of washing you use dirt, they say, well, you can also substitute that with soap. You can substitute the dirt with soap because the same effect is taking place, and Allah knows best. وَفِي نَجَاسَةٍ غَيْرِهِمَا سَبْعٌ بِلَا تُرَابٍ. In any other najasa other than a dog and a pig, then you have to wash it 7 times without dirt. It's just 7 times without including dirt. Like what? Say, for example, remember we said removing impurities, they can happen on 3 places, right? The ground, your garments, and on your body. Sah? With the ground, we already found that is 1 time. With your body, or your, as it says here, anywhere else, then you have to wash it how many times? 7 times, right? Now, some of the ulama differ. They say, la. In the same madhab of Imam Ahmed, in the same school of thought, they say, la. Some of them say it's only 1 time. Some say no, rather it's 3 times. The ones that say it's 3 times, they use the hadith. When the Prophet ﷺ, he said when a person wakes up from their sleep, They have to wash their hands 3 times before they put their hands in water. Allah knows best. وَلَا يَطْحُرُ مُتَنَجِّسٌ بِشَمْسٍ. So if something is najis, let's say we have some urine on the thawb. Let's use that as our example. We're going to use that all the way through. There's urine on the thawb. If you put your thawb out in the sun and it dries up, is that najasa removed? La. طيب. وَلَا رِيحٍ. So what if you blew a fan on it and it has some fragrance in the fan and you put it on your thawb even though the urine is still there? Does it clean it? La. طيب. وَدَلْكٍ. Even if you try to, rinse it out yourself without water. You don't have any water. Does that clean it? La. The next thing, وَلَا إِسْتِحَالَةٍ. Now we're going to move on to something else. Something called al-istihala. Have any of you guys ever heard of istihala? Istihala is if something is najis in and of itself, and then it turns into something that's pure later. I'll give you an example. Say, for example, you have, I don't know.
Sneakers.
No, not your sneakers. Say you stepped in some dog mess. You burnt it down and turned into ash. Is that ash? Because it's not dog mess anymore, it becomes ash. Is this ash pure now? According to the fiqh of Imam Ahmed, la. According to the school of Imam Ahmed, la. Even if you change it, it's still what it is. It's still huwa. Yani it is that thing, it just changed, but it's still that thing that is impermissible. However, if alcohol changed by itself, then it can become pure. How is that? Because in Islam, alcohol is considered najis. So how can something that's najis be turned into something that's pure later? How is that possible? Turns into vinegar. Ahsant. So if a person has grapes, and you sit the grapes out for a long time, the grapes are going to turn into alcohol. And then after you turns into alcohol, it sits a while longer, then it's going to turn to vinegar. In this case, you can use that. However, فَإِنْ خُلِّلَتْ. However, if a person takes and changes it intentionally by themselves, like this is what they're trying to do, turn it into vinegar on their own, then in this case they say la. It's not permissible.
No, they differ on that though.
Huh?
No, they differ on that though. I'm talking about the school of mine now, with a chemical change, if you do it intentionally. Like give you example, like insulin and same with gelatin.
I don't understand. What are you saying?
Like you use gelatin, you change something else, but you're doing it on purpose, not changing its natural.
Yeah, but we only mentioned alcohol.
Okay.
But anything else, they say istihala is also najis. Even if you take something from a pig and turn it into gelatin, it's still impermissible according to the school of Imam Ahmed, even if it changes form. There are many ulama that say if it changes, then it becomes pure. If it changes into something that's pure. A lot of them say that. But many say, according to the fiqh of Imam Ahmed, it still remains what it was. وَتَنَجَّسَ دُهْنَ مَاءٍ لَمْ يَطْهُرْ. Even if you have some type of oil, and if it became najis, you can't remove it. It's still, if it's liquid, like some type of oil, it still be najis. It cannot be fixed or salvaged, if you will. وَإِنْ خَفِيَ مَوْضِعُ نَجَاسَةٍ غُسِلَ حَتَّى يَجْزِمَ بِزَوَالِهِ. So if a person has a thawb, right? لكن خُفِيَ مَوْضِعُ النَّجَاسَةِ. يعني you don't know exactly where the najis is on your throat, on your thawb. You don't know where it is, the impurity is. You still have to wash it or try as hard as you can to wash or remove that impurity. وَيَطْهُرُ بَوْلُ غُلَامٍ لَمْ يَأْكُلَ الطَّعَامِ بِنَضْحٍ. If we have a child, a boy, who is, if we have a boy that is young, that is not eating food, perhaps they're just breastfeeding, a young boy that is being breastfed, a baby, he's being breastfed, he's not eating any food. If that boy urinates on you, all you have to do is sprinkle water on that area. Make sure it encompasses the whole area, but you don't have to wash it per se, and so that rinse it and things like that. And this is due to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that was reported by Qais bint Mihsan. She said, "إنها أتت بابن لها صغير لم يأكل الطعام." that she came with her son to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. فَأَجْلَسَهُ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ فِي حِجْرِهِ. And so the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam allowed the baby to sit on his lap. فَبَالَ عَلَى ثَوْبِهِ. And so the baby urinated on the Prophet's thawb sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. فَدَعَ بِمَاءٍ فَنَضَحَهُ وَلَمْ يَغْسِلْ مُتَّفِقٌ عَلَيْهِ. And so the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he sprinkled water on it. He did not wash it. And this hadith was reported by Imam al-Bukhari and Imam Muslim. طيب. عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. ويعفى في غير ماء ومدعوم. So now we're going, lastly, from the last few things we're going to mention here, the things that can be pardoned if there's a small amount of impurities there. Anything, we're going to talk about things that are not liquids and are not food. Outside of that, if a person has a small amount of blood that is najis from an animal that is pure, what is considered a pure animal? We're going to talk about that. Some of them, for example, an animal that can be eaten, like a ghanam, a sheep. Fi hajm al-hurra. Any animal that is the size of a cat or smaller is not considered najis for the most part. Right. One athar al-istijmar. So then, if it's small, if it's blood, a small amount of blood from a small animal like that, then is pardoned, if you will. The same thing, athar al-istijmar. If what is istijmar? Does anyone remember istijmar? What is that? You guys ever heard that word before? Huh? Yes, to clean yourself with rocks. To clean yourself with a rock. And today it would be, or they say istijmar with a rock, or nahwi. Nahwi in our time would be tissue. So a person uses toilet paper and they don't have any water. They use toilet paper with no water. Is there still going to be some ether there? Is there still going to be some remnants there? The ulama say yes, absolutely. But whatever remains after a person uses toilet paper without using water is pardoned. It's pardoned in that case, as long as it stays in that area. It doesn't exceed the area where the najasa is, or the impurities is. وَلَا يَنْجُسَ الْآدَمِيُّ بِالْمَوْتِ. A human being does not become najis if they die. La yanjus al-mu'min. And Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, he says a believer does not become najis. Yani a human does not become najis. Here it says al-adami, yani the son of Adam does not become impure when they pass away. وَلَا نَفْسَ لَهُ سَائِلَةٌ مُتَوَلِّدْ مِنْ طَاهِرٍ. And likewise, a bug that doesn't, or a small bug that doesn't bleed is not najis. For example, like a fly. If a fly falls in your food, we know the hadith, one side is the poison, the other side is the cure. So even if it's dead, it's still not considered impure. Right, the next one is kind of tricky. But we're still going to use the example of a sheep. We're going to use the example of a sheep here. So it says, وَبَوْلُ مَا يُكَّلُ لَحْمُهُ. We have a sheep. If a sheep happens to urinate on you, is that najis? Oh. It says, وَبَوْلُ مَا يُكَّلُ لَحْمَهُ. So the urine from the sheep, or what have you, is not considered najis. Likewise, وَرَوْثُهُ. Likewise, the feces from those sheep is also not considered najis, as we have hadith of the Prophet ﷺ praying in an area that was filled with najis from the, or not najis, feces from the ghanam, from the sheep. And likewise, maniyul adami, and likewise, sperm from a human, a man, is also not considered najis. And likewise, rutubat al-farj al-mar'a, and likewise, the moisture that comes from a woman's private part is also not considered najis. However, it breaks the wudu. If it comes any fluid that comes out, obviously out of the two private parts, it breaks the wudu, but it's not considered najis. The moisture from a woman, and likewise from a man, if it is sperm. Is that clear?
You're talking about on your clothes.
No, just come out, period. It's not considered najis. It has nothing to do with your clothes. Right?
You get on your clothes,
We're not saying you shouldn't wipe it off. But what I'm saying is we're talking about, is it pure or is it najis? right?
So Michael, like, so you can, so if you got on your clothes and you didn't wipe it off, you can still pray in that garment.
There's some narrations that, when the Prophet ﷺ, he had some many or sperm on his stole or his garment, and he was walking out. Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, she said she was plucking some of it off. Meaning, so some of the early men say even though she was plucking it off, it still may have been some remnants there. So that shows that it is not considered impure. طيب. وَالسُّعْرُ حِرَّتي وَمَا دُونَهَا فِي خِلْقَةٍ طَاهِرٌ. And likewise, the saliva or mouth, the liquid from a cat, is also considered pure. وَالسِّبَاعُ الْبَهَائِمْ وَالطِّيرُ. So predator animals. We have predator animals and predator birds and donkeys. And likewise, mules are also considered najis. Predator animals, predator birds, donkeys and mules are considered najis. And with that, we're done these 2 chapters. And next week, inshallah, we're going to cover, inshallah, the chapter of the menses for the women. And that's going to be the last chapter in the book of purification, as we have one more chapter to go and we're done. Any questions, Aquan? Any questions? If it's a boy, yes. But if it's a girl, you gotta wash it. Why? Allah knows best. I've read many different interpretations of it, but Allah knows best. Any other questions? Sheikh Induk Sheikh? طيب. No questions.
You already answered my question.
Alhamdulillah. Sheikh, you good? No?
The tayammum. So it's just you find the dirt that can be seen on your hands,
Mm-hmm.
and it's
Yes, all of that.
Is the time? I mean,
hold on.
Yep. You
One
good.
time or 3 times?
One time.
One time.
Hit it one time, wipe your face and your
One
hands.
time.
You good.
One time face, one time over.
You
your
good.
hands.
Inshallah.
So like the brother was saying, you have water, have a little bit of water.
Mhm.
So I'm not gonna wash my hands. I'm gonna go and do my nose and my mouth.
Mm-hmm.
First, do my nose and my mouth, and that's it. There's no more water after that.
No.
After that, it's tayammum.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
face, hands.
Yeah.
Hold on, I can pray.
That's it. All right. Follow.
Yeah, I thought it was only when there is no water.
Well, in cases when there is no water, you have a small amount of water, but it's not enough to make a complete wudu with it. So you use as much of the water as you can, and then for the rest you make tayammum. All right? Is that clear? No more questions? طيب. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.